So tell me a bit about the research you've been doing into hamstrings and what relationship that has to swimming and how that can actually help people improve their swimming.
Yeah, it's just so much attention, given to the glutes and core, which we know are very important. But I've just really just with swimmers, I've just been working a lot with strengthening their hamstrings and in a functional manner, which we'll get to later down the podcast. But just really just seeing how once we got their hamstrings really strong, how that really supported them in the water. And we talked about one of the things with hamstrings is that when you have weak hamstrings, you get this feeling that your legs keep dropping, and so that just simply by getting them functionally strong through hamstrings, how they're able to just feel lighter in the pool, and we'll touch that. I'll break down all the different reasons why hamstrings are strong now.
So, I mean, the way that I kind of see it from a technique analysis perspective is we see people in the water and they might have a really great body position with the top half of their body. Their hips, their torso, and their head might be quite high. But if they've either got tightness through the hip flexors and, by the sounds of it, weakness through the hamstrings and sometimes the glutes, it makes it hard to keep the legs up in line with the rest of the body. And if you can't hold yourself up in that position, then you're going to be having to work quite hard to be able to maintain your speed. So what would be how would you assess whether it's weakness or tightness through the hamstrings or the glutes or hip flexors? Like where's that relationship sit?
Yeah, and that's obviously what we do in the physical assessment. Obviously when you're in the pool, but you'd see that as a coach, you would see them struggling with that. But then we would assess them and do some, muscular assessments and see where there's a break in that chain or that connection. And I think it'd be good to maybe start with the why, like why hamstrings are so important. And you just touched on hip flexors, but one of the causes, I mean, they're all interrelated, but one of the causes of weak hamstrings are tight hip flexors as well. And you find that especially with swimmers, maybe with poor posture as well, is that they overuse their glutes and their back muscles to swim if the hamstrings are weak. So, that then stops the whole flow of energy and that whole we've discussed the Serape effect where, the energy comes from the one side of the body and crosses over to the top half. But so it's a big problem. And the other one is weak core muscles, and just specifically lower core muscles, Brenton, which I'm finding and I work with the clients. And so a lot of my clients or your clients or your members are doing like playing. So they're doing some sort of core exercise, but they are on the one side of the body, that core is shut down. And what I mean by shut down, it's just not getting, enough contraction. There's not enough, stimulus or signaling to that muscle. So it's working maybe 30%. And that's been quite a big breakthrough as well. As you improve those lower core strength and the hamstrings straight away also improve their connection. So it's a sort of a troubleshooting that we do online. Yeah.
And it's not like with those lower core muscles, I think the way that people are not able to use them, it's not like you need to be doing big, heavy weights. It's like, it's first of all, just getting that activation happening and getting those muscles to work properly in certain exercises and then building up and loading up from there, right? Like a lot of times people don't have much strength or in activation through there at all.
Right. So there's two sort of schools of thought, and one is the idea that you're hollowing, and that's drawing in the navel to spine. It was made sort of famous in the Pilates time in the era of where there were ideas was to contract that deep corset muscle, which is known as a transverse abdominis. So it's referred to as hollowing, but it's for me, I'm more going into it's a bracing that I'm looking for. The bracing, and again, you said it's so nice. It's not a bracing like you're going to get punched in the stomach, but there's a bit of a stiffening and tensioning of the tummy muscles and the lower. It's actually not even the abdominals. If you look here, there's the abdominals coming down here. It's more what we call the internal external obliques. So people are way more familiar with like strengthening their abs, but it's actually getting into those internal external obliques deep down in the pelvic inlet there. And the bracing is like, it's just when you tense a muscle, it actually expands. It doesn't come inwards. You know what I mean? So if you contract biceps, you won't see biceps getting depressed. It bulges out. And so the idea is that we want to actually not draw in too much and hold that tension inside. It's more bracing. It's just, a gentle stiffening is the word you want to hit.
Gotcha. And with that, what about, what's the relationship with calf muscles as well? It's something that I remember you talking about previously. So
So when the hamstrings are weak or not connected, well, they're never not connected, but we're talking about like weak connection. And think about it like a Wi-Fi signal, like you have a weak connection. It's that the calf then has to overwork and generate sort of power, electricity, force, which often causes a lot of calf strain. It restricts ankle mobility, and as you know, as a swimmer, if you have nice loose ankles, it's a real aid, and it helps a lot. So having that hamstring. And remember, you've got the calf hamstring going into buttocks. Then you've got you've got the back muscles going all the way through to the neck. So in that chain, if you've got like anything like a link, you remember the body's just linked. So if there's a break in the chain or in that link or in that connection, and often it's the hamstrings, then it really has a huge effect right through the whole body.
Would it have any impact on how often someone gets cramps through the calves? And I've got no idea. I'm just curious about this because it's such a common thing. I was training on Wednesday and we did a final 50, all out 50 max effort. And one of the guys pulled up at 25 meters because his calf was like a rock and he had to make his way back to the wall to finally stretch it out. So I know it's a really common one for a lot of people, especially triathletes. So is there any relationship there?
There can be. I mean, it depends. It can be many. I mean, we know cramps can be caused by dehydration, mineral, like there's mineral loss there, or like there's quite a few things that can contribute to cramping. But it certainly can. If there's a shutdown in the hamstring and it loses that connection, then calf's going to overwork and eventually cramp. So that it's a potential cause. Yes.
So what are some reasons that people might have poor hamstring strength and connection?
Yeah, so we just touched on that. So weak core is a big one. Tight hip flexors is another one. Poor posture is obviously very common, and then which is also a result of poor hamstring strength again. Then you've got things like poor body mechanics, so just not moving throughout the day, right? Or maybe you're exercising and you're not engaging the hamstrings enough. So those are the common ones that I see, and there's a lot of. I mean, people, the average person who's doing exercise is aware they need to be strengthening hamstrings, and we'll get to that just now. But it's the method they use to strengthen hamstring, which is where we really want to dive in just now into, because that really does make a difference. And yeah, and then just too much glute activation. I think if you Google best exercises for lower body, you'll often hear like you got to get the glutes, the buttocks strong, It seems to be the king at the moment. Like everybody's so focused on buttocks. When they squat, you're pushing to the heels to activate the buttocks. You are mentally activating buttocks. So it's almost like it's gone extreme now. So now everyone is like forgetting that there's a hamstring and a lower core. It's all working together. So it's interesting how we are, it seems to be what the internet's where the science is going. That's where we tend to focus, and then we forget about the other important muscles as well.
It's all about the booty, hey? No one comments on how good their hamstrings look. So
yeah, no, 100%. And no one's really thinking like, are you like thinking about activating hamstring as you get up in a squat but it's not. So yeah, it's back to body awareness. But for swimmers, you feel that difference straight away. And quite a few comments from the members is, I feel free and more power in my upper body, because we talked about that. If you were swimming with like flippers, how it's make life so much easier. And that's the ideal. If you're swimming and you feel like you're supported from the hamstrings, then you're activated, and it's doing its job.
Yeah, totally. And the comment that a lot of people make is that when they swim with a pool boy, they sit high in the water. Things are really easy. When they take it off, they might be 5 or 10 seconds slower per 100. Now, what I see there is that you're holding your body in a way where you're obviously sitting higher, but your legs are sitting in a better position as well. And I find that having a good pull boy between your legs, it can actually sort of make you switch on that middle section of your body a bit to keep it in there. And it's a little bit of that kind of engagement or activation that we want while we're swimming, when you don't have that in between your legs. So if you can have that same sort of sensation or feeling, well, that is going to help you sit better in the water.
The pool boy is essentially taking the role of the hamstrings. Does that make sense? It's like you're for that. It's compensating for that weakness there. So essentially, like this is what it really seems to see if the guys if they do that work, the hamstrings, to get that improvement and get that feeling that they feel, wow, I really feel like my legs are being supported.
So let's get into some ways that people can start to get them working better and strengthen them. And what sort of stuff you're doing with these clients?
So depending on the level of where they are in their journey, if you're an triathlete, then it's a lot easier. If you're maybe someone who's got poor posture and you're not big into exercises, but the simple things, there's a few little simple techniques you can do. And one of them is just simply like doing like a yoga stretch where you stand like wide apart with your feet and you soften the knees, bend your hips a bit, and just bend down gently to touch the ground. So not touching the ground with your hands and legs straight, but that sort of free sort of stretch, dynamic stretch, which I like. Not you're not holding the stretch. So you bend down, come back up, and just doing like 3 or 4 of those really just sort of activates and improves that neural connection through there. The other one is, which is you can do with even before swimming, but even in the gym, which I do a lot of the members as well, is a thing called tapping, where you basically you're just kind of like tapping the muscles over. You're not hard, you can even just rub, but you're just trying to draw, get attention and connection through those muscles. You'll laugh, but some people, they'll be, when they tap their hamstrings, they'll be like, "Oh, you want me to tap here?" And I'm like, "No, yeah." And then, so it's just, again, body awareness. Like, it's amazing how, many people that don't know where their hamstrings are. So, and yeah, so that, and then you can also, one that's quite popular with physical therapists and physios here in South Africa is they make you do plantar dorsiflexion with the ankle. So just basic movements back and forth activates the hamstrings. It's a weird sensation. Like, you'll do an exercise and you won't feel it. And then you'll do a couple of these little plantar flexion, dorsiflexion movements, and suddenly you'll feel the muscle actually activating. So you have to experience that for yourself. And then the other one is simply rolling your feet out. You find that people who are pronators, who have got flat feet and are pronated, they struggle to get hamstring activation. If you get them to roll their feet out, my hands on your ankles in the video here, as you roll your ankles out to the side, supination, you get a much stronger activation through the hamstrings.
So those last 2 are from a standing position.
You can do those last 2 standing or sitting in the chair, just rolling out. These you can do sitting or standing, just, even ankle circles before you just swim. Even just that is, the average person will do that just to, mobilize ankle, not knowing that they actually are activating hamstrings as well.
Gotcha. So there are a couple of ways people can start to activate them, get that awareness around where they are and getting them working. What about ways to use them better? How do we strengthen them? How do we start to develop that?
Yeah. So, me, I'm a squat guru here on this, but squats are one of the best ways to strengthen hamstrings, but often, which I've been finding with the swimmers, is they're not activated or they can't actually feel their hamstrings. So we just take them back a bit. And there's a exercise that I really do is the seated stagger position, where you get people sitting on a chair and you put the one leg about 2 to 3 inches in front, and then you ask them to stand up. And very often they'll want to push through their heels to get the glutes. But what you want to do is, as you're standing up, you want to push the hips through and gently pull the knee back, and that activates the hamstring straight away. They'll often feel that. And then you'll make them switch. They change legs. So they'll change the other leg in front, and then they'll find on the one side, like, "Oh, I can't use my hamstring on that side," or it's getting my back. And then you'll go back and test that. And that's one of the tests we see to see what, are they actually using their hamstrings. But most people, it'll be like 98% glute, like not much in their hamstrings. Some people have a lot of hamstring, but not enough glute. So that it all depends on the person. But in the general, you'll see that they are mainly glutes, and lower back comes in a lot. They'll feel a lower back trying to compensate for weak hamstrings. So, and then sorry, jump in there.
Oh, no. So you continue on. I'll ask this question at the end.
Yeah. So once they got that, then the other thing is that your hamstrings, when people think about hamstrings, they think about bending their heel, kicking their heel back into their buttocks. You know what I mean? Like that is a typical, and that is a function of the hamstring, but that's in what we call an open chain. So the foot's not grounded planted on the ground. But typical hamstring exercise you see would be lying on your stomach with a weight on your foot at the gym machines, and then pulling your heel back towards your buttocks. And so that will be concentrically working the hamstring, and that it does strengthen. But you must remember that, again, that's not something that you do in life functionally. You know what I mean? You're very rarely lying on your side that to pull something towards you. And even when you're walking and running, yes, you've got that flexion of the leg, but it's not against 50, 60, 100 kilograms. It's a very light, easy. But where you are loading it is in a squat position. So when you are bending down and then getting back up again, it's the hamstrings that provide that sort of, if you see in the video here, as you as you squat down, the hamstrings are actually eccentrically loading. They're actually getting longer. And then as you stand up, they're concentrically shortening. So glutes, I mean, your squats, once you're activated, are a very powerful way to safely progress through into the squats. Yeah.
Gotcha. And just thinking, like, for someone who's listening to this, what would be a good indicator of someone who might want to consider, looking at these exercises? Like, what would a couple of signs be? And I know we've sort of talked about, we've talked tight hip flexors and those sorts of things, but is there anything in sort of daily life that someone might experience that could be, an indicator of, take a look at this?
Yep. Knee pain. When the hamstrings aren't firing, you don't get that support through the knee. So knee pain's a big one. Lower back pain, definitely got to consider like weak hamstrings on the one side. Any sort of muscle imbalances where you're told your one leg is longer than the other, or your pelvis is out of alignment, that's often a hamstring issue. Then and you're going to find this interesting, but even shoulder pain, like because of the power, like once hamstrings and lower core get involved, like shoulders becomes free. So even links to shoulder pain. And again, that we talked about how when you have that support in the water, your upper body can actually have energy and freedom to move. If the hamstrings are dropping, and when I mean dropping, I'm dropping like dropping ball pins, they're not strong, then that upper body has to really work hard. And that can be the result of shoulder issues as well. So those are the big ones to watch out. And if you are doing squats or, lunges, and you just feel your knees and your quads and your buttocks and you don't really feel hamstring involvement, then that's a good time to stop and just sort of go, hang on a minute, let me check what I'm doing here. Or maybe I need to cap or get connected.
What I'm thinking of there, you mentioned could be shoulder issues. It's quite often like the process that I'll need to go through with people, particularly those who are slower than about 2 minutes per 100. Quite often they'll be swimming. We talked about the low legs. Okay. So that's the first thing. And that causes them to swim very flat because they can't rotate properly and because things just aren't connected. And that can load up the shoulders a lot because they're having to muscle their way through rather than it feeling like it's effortless and it's just flowing well. So sometimes it's just coming back to actually holding the body straight, making sure the right muscles are switched on and we're holding that midsection of the body the right way. And then we can rotate, and then we can actually move a lot freer through the catch in the pool and over the water. So that's it's an interesting one that shoulder issues could be hamstring related.
Related, and you make a great point. And that's another function of hamstrings: hip internal, external rotations. So as you're moving, as your pelvis is dropping and the legs are these are my legs moving in the water. That's all hamstrings. Okay, obviously, but the buttocks is also involved, the glutes, but that's all hamstrings. So it actually has many roles. It's a stabilizer. So when your one leg is kicking, the hamstrings is holding the other leg isometrically is contracting. So it's actually pretty awesome, how much functions these muscles are doing at microseconds. It's all happening, and that's back to the electricity. It's happening in milliseconds, and it's like the voltage has been shifting, and the signaling is like you got to contract, you got to eccentric, you got to pull, now you're going to stabilize, now you're going to internally rotate. So this is again why I reached out to you, just saying these muscles, once we address, and again, you're not saying don't strengthen glutes, don't strengthen lats, don't strengthen your other muscles, but this is an important part of the chain to really pay attention to.
Terrific. Is there anything else you'd like to add, or anything else people should be thinking about when it comes to use of the hamstrings, strengthening them, and those sorts of things?
So if you're doing squats, again, back to squats, but if you are doing squats, just to really just make sure that you can feel the hamstrings, and not dominating, but activating in the squats, and build that what we call baseline strength, that you've got a solid foundation, that you feel supported, that you can move up and down easy if you're not feeling your back. And then you can start to load. So that loading can be many ways. There's different variations of squats, as you know. But before you start doing heavy deadlifts and maybe like goblet squats, or even like, movements where you're lifting up and that, just make sure you got that connection, because that will provide a really strong base for you to move from. And often we find with the squats, people are really, again, they're trying to really get strong in the knees, and the quad muscles and the glutes, and which you do need for squatting, obviously, but it's the hamstrings. And I'd also just quickly just pay attention to lower core, like, if you are doing core exercises, just to can't see in the video, but just actually put your hands on the lower. If I was to draw like a cross here, like blocks, so I've got like 4 blocks to feel like where you're working, even if you're just lifting a leg up and down in the move in the gym, do I feel like this is contracting the same as that? Is it balanced, or do I feel like an overwork? And one of the telltale signs quickly for those is that you'll often feel like your hip flexor, your quad muscle gets tired pretty quickly. So if you're ever doing any core exercise, even the plank, you'll feel the quads jump in. That's the indication that you're dropping voltage or you're losing power in the core. And so that's, just those are some easy tip, information that helps people.